Welcome to the Good Old Days of Radio show. This is John Tefteller, your host, and it's Comedy Day, and we have a very special guest with us today who's going to talk about his experiences back in the good old days of radio, and more specifically, his experiences working with Mr. Jack Benny. If you are familiar with the Jack Benny show, in the late 40s, early 50s, they brought on some new characters, and some of those characters were known as the Beavers. And our special guest today is Mr. Stuffy Singer, now known as Simon Singer, but back then as Stuffy Singer. And he was one of the Beavers that appears on the Jack Benny Show on a number of different programs from that time period. So, welcome to the Good Old Days of Radio show, Stuffy Singer.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So, why don't you tell us how you got started in radio and how you wound up on the Jack Benny Show, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I got started in radio a little differently than most people. I got started in live television at KTLA in, I believe, about 1947 or 48, when there were maybe 10,000 television sets in all of Los Angeles. There was a children's show that was called Sandy Dreams, and there were three principal characters. One was Sandy, who was a 12-year-old. The other was Stuffy, her next-door neighbor, which was me, probably a 6 or 7-year-old. And then there was Candy, who was Sandy's doll, who every week when she would fall asleep and wake up someplace, some foreign country, and the kids would sing and dance. The show was extremely popular considering 12,000 TV sets, but there are some very well-known people that your audience will recognize. One was Jill Oppenheimer, who became Jill St. John as she got older. Another one was Lee Aker, who played Rusty on the Rin Tin Tin TV show. And then a third was Richard Beamer, who played the male lead in West Side Story. In any event, television was new, and the casting artists were able to see for the first time children perform. And so from that show, which was, I think, after we had done 100 shows, I got a call, or my parents got a call for either the casting director of the Jack Benny Show or the casting director of the Gildersleeve Show. I'm not sure which one was first, but we're here today to talk about the Jack Benny Show. So that's more or less how I got started. The industry was much smaller at that time than it is today, much more a business of acceptance. Harold Perry, who played the great Gildersleeve, and Jack Benny were two of far and away the most popular radio artists that there was on radio. And since it was a business of acceptance, it was kind of like, well, if you're good enough for them, you're good enough for me. And there were years I did over 400 shows a year. So that's more or less how I got started in it.
Okay. So you did 400 shows a year. That would be not just Jack Benny and Great Gildersleeve, but a lot of others. Can you tell us some of the others?
Oh, sure. Lux Radio Theater, Phil Harris and Alice Faye. In fact, typically when I did a Jack Benny show and Phil Harris was on the show, I would always be cast to do a Phil Harris show, which followed him. I forget which studio was East and West, but followed him. He was always on at the beginning of the show, so he could finish up and get to the other studio quickly enough to start his own show. And so they put my part at the beginning of the show also. He'd grab me by the hand, we'd run through the parking lot, and we go do the Phil Harris and Alice Faye show. And let's see, there was a show called Too Many Cooks, which starred Bob Sweeney and Hal March. And it was mostly every kid in the industry at that time because there were 12 children. The oldest was Richard Crenna. The youngest was me. And it was the mother was Mary Jane Croft. The father was Hal March. And it was Norma Jean Nielsen and Tommy Bernard and Johnny McGovern, who evolved to become John Wilder. And it was just an extremely funny show, which was a summer replacement for Lux Radio Theater. And
so I guess then Jack Benny was the big show that you appeared on. I mean, nothing wrong with Lux Radio Theater. That was certainly big, but you had a more reoccurring role on the Benny Show.
Yeah, probably did about 10 shows a year for about 4 or 5 years. And it was always, not necessarily always the same name, but always one of the Beverly Hills Beavers, which was his boys group. And sometimes there'd be other children on also. Harry Shearer was on, Beverly Washburn was on. And being as young as I was, I don't know whether or not there were other shows with other children. I'm assuming there was. I just wasn't really privy to it.
Yeah, okay. Well, the cast listing on this particular one that we're going to hear says Gloria Gordon, Patricia Lanoni. I don't know how you pronounce that, but...
It's actually Iannone, and she was the
Iannone.
Candy on Sandy Dreams.
Okay, and then Rosemary Iannone.
Right, she was Sandy.
Okay, Eric Nielsen. You mentioned Harry Shearer. There's, of course, you, and then somebody named Peter Votrian.
Peter Votrian. Peter Votrian was actually a very successful, probably more movies than radio.
And the last member is listed as Walter Wooten.
Don't know that name.
Okay. Well, all right. So what we have is a rehearsal program from February 22nd, 1953. And it basically says that the description of it is the entire cast of the show is impersonated by the Beavers. So maybe that strikes more of a memory with you. If not, we're going to hear it, and then we'll see what you think of it after we hear it.
Okay, good. I typically played Dennis Day on that show.
Okay. Well, this is February 22nd, 1953, the rehearsal for the Jack Benny program sponsored by Lucky Strike. So I'm going to put that on. We'll both listen to it, and then when it's over, we'll turn your mic back on, and you can make a few comments, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, John.
All righty. Here we go with the Jack Benny Show, February 22nd, 1953, the dress rehearsal.
Okay, Don.
The Lucky Strike program starring Jack Benny with Mary Livingston, Rochester, Dennis Day, Bob Crosby, and yours truly, Don Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, immediately following this radio program, Jack will do another television show. But meanwhile, let's take you back to yesterday. Last night, the members of the Beverly Hills Beavers put on a play at the school auditorium. Of course, Jack Benny, who happens to be the treasurer of the club, was planning to go. We now find Rochester pressing Jack's tuxedo.
Press it once and press it twice, then press it once again. It's been a long, long time. Da 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 da. Well, I got the pants pressed. Now I better finish pressing the coat. I wonder where Mr. Benny bought this tuxedo. It should be on the label. Yeah, there it is. The Pep Boys. Oh, isn't that cute? The boss crossed out Manny and Mo.
Oh, Rochester, have you finished pressing my clothes yet?
Yes, boss, but who was the last one you rented this tuxedo to?
Why?
Every time I lay the coat down, the arms fold.
Oh, stop.
Anyway, you're only going to a school play. Why dress formal?
Rochester, the Beavers aren't putting on just a play. They're going to do their version of my radio program. You see, each one of the kids will portray a member of my cast.
Oh.
And since I'm the inspiration for their show, they may ask me to come up on the stage and make a speech. Gosh, I'll never forget 10 years ago when I made that speech for the Academy Awards.
Boss, I didn't know you were on the speakers list.
I wasn't, but I just had to get up and tell them what I thought of them. I'm glad I did, too. I'll get her, Rochester. Oh, hello, Mary.
Hello, Jack. Am I early?
Well, we don't have to be at the school auditorium for a half hour yet. Sit down, Mary.
Thanks. You know, just before I left home, I was talking on the phone to Mama.
Oh, to your mother, eh?
Uh-huh.
Well, what did the no loose ends of Plainfield have to say?
Well, she told me she read in the paper about your visit with President Eisenhower.
That's right, Mary. I did visit the president.
Did he show you around the White House?
Yes, Mary. He was very nice to me. And, Mary, remember when you saw the White House on television, that big room where the piano was?
Uh-huh.
There's a putting green there now. It's really nice.
Here's your tuxedo, boss.
Oh, help me on with the coat, Rochester. I want to see if it still fits. Thanks.
Jack, if you wear that old tuxedo again, I'm not going out with you. It's so old-fashioned now.
Old-fashioned?
Yes, look how the coat is. Let me see. Look how long the coat is.
What are you laughing at?
You look like the villain in The Drunkard.
That's it. Only when I wear the cape. Now, Mary.
Jack, I mean it. I wouldn't be seen dead in that tuxedo.
Our last customer didn't mind.
No, I think it's better. Our last customer didn't mind. Our last customer didn't mind. You try that once, will you, Ruff?
Our last customer didn't mind.
That's it. Now, cut that out. I'm going to wear this tuxedo, and that settles it. Now, Rochester, I won't be home until... I'll get it. Hello?
Hi, Jack. This is Bob. Say, I hate to bother you today, but I thought I ought to let you know that I'm on jury duty.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, the first case comes up Wednesday. It may last for weeks.
This is ridiculous. You'll miss my show. Didn't you tell him you worked for me?
Yes, I did, Jack.
Well, why did you tell him it would be a hardship if you had to lose the income from my show?
Well, I told him, Jack, but that didn't work either.
I think instead of Jack, I told him that, but that didn't work either.
I told him that, but that didn't work either.
Why not?
Well, they pay more than you do.
What?
$3 a day.
Well, that temporary work is always high. But, Bob, I just can't let you miss my show.
Well, there's really nothing you can do about it, Jack.
Oh, no? What about my contract with you?
Well, that's the case we're trying on Wednesday.
Oh, stop joking, Bob. I need you for the show, so I wish you'd try and make it.
Well, okay. Say, by the way, Jack, did you get that recording I made with the sportsman?
Well, yes, Bob, it's right here.
Well, play it. I think you might enjoy it.
All right, I'll play it right now. So long, Bob.
Goodbye.
Oh, Mary, Bob sent me a record that he made with the Sportsman Quartet. Let's play it.
Okay, where is it?
Right there by the phonograph. And play it loud, Mary, so I can hear it in the other room while I'm getting dressed.
All right.
You don't have to do the song. You all know it, don't you? I think this time, though, if Charlie was here, I wouldn't mind hearing All right. Say, Mary, that was very good. It was thoughtful of Bob to get the sportsman to do it with him.
It sure was. Say, Jack, don't you think it's about time we left for the school auditorium?
Yes, might be late here. Rochester, get my car out of the garage, will you,
You
please?
can't use the car, boss. A nail went through one of the tires.
Oh.
I told you not to buy such cheap tires.
Rochester, the most expensive tire in the world can be punctured by a nail.
A fingernail?
Well, what'd you touch it for? Always testing. Now what are we going to do?
I've got my car outside.
I think I'd hit a fingernail a little more. A fingernail? Yeah, I'd hit that a little more. Yeah.
I've got my car outside.
Okay, we'll go in yours. Come on.
Bye, Rochester.
Goodbye.
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 Jack, wasn't that a nice song Bob sang?
Yeah.
The sun is shining. Oh, happy day.
They may cut taxes. I feel so gay. Da-dum, da-dum, dum, da-dum, da-dum.
Oh, look, Jack, here comes Dennis on a bicycle. I love this.
Where?
Oh, hello, Mary. Hello, Mr. Benny.
Hello, kid. We were just leaving for the school auditorium. Aren't you going to see the Beverly Hills Beavers put on their play?
Oh, sure, but it's such a nice night, I thought I'd ride over on my new bicycle.
Oh, is that a new one, Dennis?
Yeah, I won it last night on a quiz program.
On a quiz program? Gosh, you're really lucky.
Yeah.
Was it a hard question?
Oh, no, it was easy. The man pointed at me and said, would you pay $100 for this bicycle? I said, yes, so I gave him the $100, and he gave me the bicycle.
Dennis.
I almost won a refrigerator, but I didn't have enough money.
Look, kid, did the master of ceremonies of the quiz program have a little hammer in his hand?
That's right.
Dennis.
Why didn't he hit you over the head with it like he should have?
Dennis, you were at an auction.
Certainly, and all those people crowded around were bidding. Now, come on, we better get to the school auditorium.
Oh, give out.
By the way, Dennis, did you ask your mother if you could go duck hunting with me again next year?
Yeah.
Next week? Good.
Dennis, I didn't know you'd go with Mr. Benny on his hunting trips.
Oh, sure, I'm his retriever.
You mean when he shoots, you bring back the ducks?
No, when he misses, I have to bring back the buckshot.
All right, all right. Now, Dennis, leave your bicycle here and come with us.
Okay.
All right. Now, kids, here's where you... Oh, Stuffy, here's where you come up now. Gee, don't forget that now. Stuffy comes up first, yeah. Don, you mark everything, will you, Don? This is where Stuffy comes up first. Say, this school auditorium really is packed. Well, we got pretty good seats, didn't we, Mary?
Oh, these are fine. Right in center.
Can you see all right, Dennis?
No,
Well, why don't you ask that man in front of you to take off his hat?
it isn't his.
What?
It's mine. I put it there.
Well, take it off and be quiet.
Hey, Mr. Benny. Mr. Benny.
Oh, hello, Joey. Is everything ready backstage for your show?
Uh-huh.
Are the kids nervous?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, good luck.
Thanks. Mr. Benny. And by the way, you'll be glad to
Oh,
know...
thanks, Mr. Benny.
Yeah,
You know. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Benny. And by the way, you'll be happy to know that we're almost sold out of popcorn.
Good, good. And Stuffy, don't throw away popcorn so much. And by the way, in fact, I wouldn't be too soft on that line. By the way, thanks, Mr. Benny. By the way, you'll be happy to know we're almost sold out of popcorn. You know.
Thanks, Mr. Benny. And by the way, you'll be happy to know that we're almost sold out of popcorn.
Good, good. Now push the lemonade. Go ahead.
Okay. You know, Miss Livingston, tonight we're going to do a takeoff on Mr. Benny's radio show.
I know.
Say, Joey, did you finally get a fat kid to play Don Wilson?
Uh-huh.
Good, good. Now, you better hurry. You'll be late. Well, Mary, it won't be long now before the show starts.
Gee, I hope the Beavers really do a good...
Hey, Mary.
Huh?
Don't look now, but there's a lady across the aisle who keeps staring at me. I guess she recognizes me.
Where?
Shh, here she comes.
Pardon me, but would you be good enough to give me your autograph?
Oh, why, certainly. There you are.
Oh, thank you. You were wonderful in The Drunkard.
I told you not to wear that cape.
I'll take it off. But I have to wear it later on my television show. You know, Mary, this idea of the little kids doing my radio program is really clever, isn't it?
Yes, Jack, I think it's the cutest thing. Oh, the curtain's going up.
Oh, yeah. And look, they've even got a kid orchestra.
Quiet, here they go.
The Jack Benny program, starring Jack Benny with Mary Livingston, Rod Chester, Dennis Day, Bob Crosby, and yours truly, Don Wilson.
Now, Frank, can you read the first line?
Yeah.
Just a little more. The Jack Benny program. Can you make it a little more, you're dominating the program now, you see?
We've got a problem here. Just a second, Jack. Could we leave the mic high?
We're going to get an engineer to help, Don, and he'll know how to set up the mics and everything.
Well, either that or have a stand, because you got a problem here trying to juggle these mics between youngsters. One's this high and the other's this high. They got a box to stand
Go
on.
get a box.
That'll solve a lot of things.
Is he too high for this?
Yeah. Now, you see, if we can put it
You have
up
to raise it.
so that it will fit the taller kids, then the smaller ones can stand on a box, and they should be about right.
Well, they all have to be here, though. The box has to be there, too, you
Right
know.
around here.
You see? That's the trouble. You still have to move the box.
Well, watch like the little ones that can walk over to...
No, it's better for the little ones to be working here, just the way they did before.
Well, the only problem you've got is really him, because the two operators work together, they're the same, and Harry, and...
But how are we going to keep moving this in and out? How are we going to keep moving that in and out?
We can't.
I didn't think you have to. I thought the microphones. How's that?
All right, let's try it from there.
Let's try it this
Just
way.
tilt it.
All right, let's try it from there. And we'll have to tilt it back. I don't know. We'll have to do something.
All right, let's...
And what we'll have to do is, it's a taped show, even if we have to stop in the middle of the show and fix these things and tell them to start their routines again or something, if we have that trouble. Now, start it, Frank, with the Jack Benny. Try it there.
The Jack Benny program, starring Jack Benny with Mary Livingston, Rod Chester, Dennis Day, Bob Crosby, and yours truly, Don Wilson. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring you the star of our show, a man who still has the first dollar he's ever earned, not because he's cheap, but because you can't spend Confederate money. And here he is, Jack Benny.
Thank you, thank you,
Now, there'll
thank
be
you.
applause. And you'll wait for the applause. All right, now you go ahead.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello again, this is Jack Benny talking. And Don, did you think up that introduction all by yourself?
Yes, Jack, and I thought it was very funny.
Oh, you did, eh?
Yes.
Don, blubber boy, take it easy. The last time you shook like that, you got a proposal from Hilo Hattie. And another thing, Don. Oh, hello, Mary. Hello, Jack. Hiya, Don. Say, Mary, I called you last night, but your maid said you were out. That's right. I went to the baseball game with Van Johnson. That's nice. Who won? When you're with Van Johnson, who watches the game? Oh. Stop ad-libbing.
Mary, what's this you dropped on the floor?
That? Oh, that's the letter I got from Mama. From your mother, eh? What does the third dimension of Plainfield have to say?
I'll read it to you.
Now, honey, when he says third dimensional plane, you have to say they'll probably laugh. So then you'll have to wait before your laugh. You won't. Now, so you don't forget that, huh?
From your mother, eh? What does the third dimension of Plainfield have to say?
I'll read it to you. My darling daughter Mary, just a few lines to let you know that we are all well. The weather's nice here now, but as you probably read in the paper, last month we had an awful blizzard. And when your father came in from the barn, his milking hand was frozen.
Gee,
I hope it thaws out soon, as we'd like to get the cow out of the house.
I don't blame them.
Say, Mary, that little girl is a natural-born actress, isn't she?
Yeah, she went right on reading the letter even though her bloomers were slipping down.
Yeah.
No other news, so we'll close now. With love, your loving mother, Mama.
You know, Mary, your mother's letters get better all the time. But let's get on with the show. Oh, Bob Crosby, I'm talking to you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jack. I didn't hear you.
Didn't hear me?
No, I've been rehearsing the band and my ears are still folded.
Oh, say, Bob, I meant to ask you. Did you learn how to pronounce that word yet?
I think so.
Let me hear you say it.
Manischewitz.
Well, keep trying, Bob. You don't want to disgrace your wife and 5 children.
Say, Jack.
What is it, Don?
I think this fella has a telegram for you.
Well, what's he waiting for? Oh, boy.
Yes?
Oh, fine. Are you from Western Union?
Who do you think I am with this uniform, Nelson Eddy?
Never mind. Just give me the message.
Here you are.
And here's a tip for you.
Oh, boy, a nickel. Now I can send my father through college.
Say, I've had trouble with you before. What's the matter with you? Do you enjoy aggravating me?
Whoa! Do I?
Now let's see. I wonder who this telegram is.
Jack, you only gave him a nickel tip. That's the cheapest thing I ever heard of.
Mary, be quiet, or you'll be known as Nylon Nellie at the May Company. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for our feature attraction tonight, we are going to do
Hello, Mr. Benny. Hello, Mary. Hello, Dennis.
Hey, kid, I'm glad you got here because it's time for your... Wait a minute. Dennis, look at me.
Huh?
Dennis, this is the first time I ever saw you wearing glasses. Are your eyes bad?
No.
Then why are you wearing those glasses?
My uncle died and left them to me.
Your uncle? Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, I can't see a darn thing with them.
Well, for heaven's sakes, kid, if you can't see with them, take them off. Just because somebody leaves you something in a will, you're not compelled to use it.
I'm not?
No.
Anybody want to buy a set of teeth?
Now cut that out and take off those glasses. It's time for your song.
Okay.
While you're singing, I'm going out in the hall and get a candy bar out of the machine. Where's that candy machine? Oh, here it is. Now, let's see. They've got Hershey's, Circus Peanuts, Lifesavers, Babe Ruth, and Milky Dip. I think I'll get that one, a Milky Dip.
Hey, Bud.
Huh?
Come here a minute.
Who, me?
Yeah, what you doing?
I'm getting some candy.
What kind?
A Milky Dip. What?
Get a Hershey bar.
Why a Hershey bar?
In this hot weather, nothing runs like chocolate.
But I want a Milky Dip.
Milky Dip hasn't got a chance.
What are you talking about? Milky Dip not only has chocolate on the outside, but it has cream in the center.
That's what'll give you the trouble.
What?
Cream is hard to handle unless you whip it.
Gee, I never thought of that. You really think I should get a Hershey bar?
Can't miss. Look at the last performance.
Last performance?
Yeah. Coming out of the machine, Hershey was boxed in by Lifesaver, but got through the hole.
Really?
And Lifesaver was a favorite.
Well, I don't know. I'm still gonna... Wait a minute. I know what I'll do. I'll get Almond Joy.
Why Almond Joy?
Because in the package there are 2 bars, and I can eat them as an entry.
Okay, it's your dough.
Wasn't he cute, Jack? Just like the tout on our show. Yeah.
What took you so long, Jack?
I'm here on page 17. Right.
Okay, Mary. What took you so long, Jack? Oh, I ran into that racetrack tout. Now, where were we? We were supposed to start our sketch. Oh, yes. Well, hold a second. Kids, before we start, I want to call Rochester.
Oh, Mabel.
What is it, Gertrude?
Mr. Benny's line is flashing.
I wonder what the schmo of Kilimanjaro wants now.
Well, I'll answer it and find out. Hello?
Hello, Gertrude? Will you try to get me Rochester, please?
Just a moment, Blue Eyes. He wants I should get him Rochester.
It's a good thing he talked to you. I'd have hung up on him.
Why?
Jack took me out once and didn't even kiss me goodnight. I can't understand it. I even brought my lips up close to him. Like this.
Well, no wonder he didn't kiss you.
What?
I've seen a better pucker on a closed laundry bag.
Operator, get me Rochester.
Yes, Mr. Benny, I'm ringing for you.
Mr. Benny's residence stars stage, screen, radio, television, and get your income tax filled out by the man who knows.
Never mind that, Rochester.
Oh, it's you, boss.
Yeah. Did the man from the used car lot come around to buy my car?
Yes, sir.
Well, did you tell him the price was $1,000?
Uh-huh, but he told me that the used car market has dropped some in the last few days.
Oh, what did he offer you?
$750.
Well, that isn't so bad.
You ought to see what the decimal point is.
Now, Rochester, stop being on his side. You know as well as I do that the car is worth $1,000.
Oh, boss, come now.
All right. Well, tell the man I'm not selling it anyway. And come down to the studio and pick me up. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Jack.
Yeah, but we can't tell it. Now, kids.
Oh, no, we're cutting.
And Walter, you won't be afraid to talk loud now, will you? Talk as loud as you can. Don't
Listen,
worry.
let me ask you a question, Jack. Get your lemonade from the lobby. You want me Jack to jump right into it, huh?
Dennis.
Yes.
Listen, Jack, you've got something after that president.
Where's Dennis?
I just say yes. I did visit the president.
Wait a minute, Jack.
All right, quiet, everybody. Is this taped?
We're taping it.
And don't be nervous about anything, kids, because it'll all be a lot of fun.
You said I did this for
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be back in a minute to tell you about my television show, which goes on immediately after this program. But first, a word to cigarette smokers. Nothing, no nothing beats better taste. And remember...
Do you want to cut that over once more for me, please, and be a little bit up like they do on nothing, no nothing beats better?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be back in a minute to tell you about my television show, which goes on immediately after this program. But first, a word to cigarette smokers. Nothing, no nothing beats better taste. And remember...
Okay, the tech.
Sounded awfully good in there. Everything sounded so good. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for listening in, and in just 30 seconds, I'll be doing my television show on the entire CBS network. In the meantime...
Oh, Mr. Benny.
Yes, Dennis?
What are you doing on your television show?
I'm doing my version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
I never heard of it.
Dennis, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is one of the most famous classics of all time. It's about a man who drinks something which changes his entire personality. And you know who wrote it?
Frank Remley.
He did not. I'll see you on television, folks, in a few seconds.
Okay, that's the rehearsal show for February 22nd, 1953. Do you have any memory of that, Stuffy?
A little bit.
A little
not
bit.
a lot.
And had you ever heard that before? Is that one of the recordings you'd heard, or is that something completely new to you?
I had not heard that recording before. I'd heard a different rehearsal recording, but not that one. He was much more involved here than he was in the one that I heard previously.
Aha, okay. And which of the cast members were you? Were you doing Jack Benny on that, or who?
No, I was Dennis. I was the one who talked about we've almost sold out of the popcorn, and then later on in the show, now it's not in this recording, but I sang Clancy lowered the boom.
Oh, okay. So yeah, because this is, I guess, the dress rehearsal where they didn't go through the songs or something because there were no songs on this.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like, because he did the same thing with Bob Crosby's recording.
Yeah. Okay. And did you have to stand on a box? There was this whole conversation about how they were trying to figure out how to get the mics right, and maybe you had to stand on a box.
Probably. In this one, I'm probably 12 years old, so I haven't become a monster yet. But I'm guessing that probably I had to stand on a box. I know when I did the first one, which coincidentally was almost an identical show done in 1950. And I also played Dennis Day. I also pushed the popcorn and the lemonade. But in that one, not only did I have to stand on the box, but it was kind of evidently a new event for them to have kids on the show, because Jack Benny interrupted the rehearsal, went over and got a box, put it down in front of me, picked me up and put me on the box and asked me if that was better.
Okay.
Didn't have one of his cronies do it. He did it.
He did it. Well, since you're talking about Jack personally, tell us what your impressions of him were.
Well, my impressions of him listening to this rehearsal was, I'm thinking to myself, it's obvious to me why his shows were so smooth and so funny, because he was very involved with a lot of the actors and a lot of the script and a lot of the way they would do things. Personally, he was just a very nice man. He was nice to everybody, and probably as a result of that, it appears that most everybody was nice to each other, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. Did you have interactions with him outside of CBS studios, or was it strictly a work relationship?
I was at his house with my parents a couple of times, for a barbecue or a luncheon or something of that nature. Nothing of any significance. I mean, I'm 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12 years old, so not much in common.
Okay, but you do remember it anyway. That's good.
I do. We also did a number of benefit shows, which really weren't radio shows. They were kind of, I guess it would be similar to old-time radio, except there was no national audience. It was just a bunch of well-known people, Bob Hope and Cary Grant and Mr. Benny, etc. And, I did probably 4 or 5 of those. I don't even know who or what they were the benefit for. I just know I was there and had a few things to say, kind of like a script.
Right, but they weren't broadcast. These were things that were done privately. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Like dinners or something like that.
Dinners, luncheons. My guess is dinners probably wouldn't have been, just because they're probably not going to have a little kid around where they're serving alcohol.
Ah, okay. And you were on as a cast member from what time to what time?
From about 1949 or 50 through about 1954 or 55. So about 5 years. Did
you appear on the television show as well?
One time.
One time. So they had the Hollywood Beavers were on one of the TV shows, because he mentions going directly from this radio broadcast to down the hall to do his TV show. So
I don't think it was a Beaver scenario. The only thing I remember about it was that it was my recollection, it was the first performance of Frank Sinatra Jr. on that same show.
Oh. Well, that probably exists somewhere.
It probably does, yeah.
Yeah, Jack Benny had a lot of his stuff recorded. and so a lot of the Jack Benny stuff does survive. There's a few missing episodes, but most of them do still exist somewhere. Do you have any comments or remembrances of any of the other cast members, Mary or Rochester, Don Wilson? Any comments on any of those?
I remember my mom and I were at a restaurant, I think it was called Nicodell's, in Hollywood, and Mary Livingston was there. I don't remember who was with her, and she was wearing what looked to a little kid as a very expensive fur coat. And I asked my mother, well, how come you don't have any coats like that? Something absurd.
Overall, radio versus television, which did you like?
Well, television was frighteningly boring. I was a principal on four television shows, 4 television series, and everything took so long because they had different camera angles and different number of cameras. And I remember when I was doing the show called Beulah, which starred Hattie McDaniel to begin with before she passed away. We were doing 3 shows a week, so 1 show every 2 days. And the kids had to have 3 hours of school also. So while everybody else was lounging or resting or rehearsing, whatever they were doing on their own, the kid had to go back to school and fill in the additional portions of his 3 hours. So the kid had a really long day, and it was just long and tedious and boring. Where radio was very active. I think we did a read-through, what today would be called a table read, on Saturday morning one time, and then we come back in on Sunday late afternoon, like 4 o'clock or so, do that dress rehearsal such as you just heard, and then come back at 6 o'clock or so and do the show when it was done. And when you've got a pro like Jack Benny, you can hear the attention to inflection and timing and detail. I heard him tell the little girl, well, you have to wait for that laugh and then come in with yours.
Right.
Things that make a substantial difference in a show, which is why he was on the air for what seemed like 100 years.
Okay. What were the other television shows that you did besides Beulah?
I did Sandy Dreams at KTLA from about 1948 through 1950. Then I did another one there. Remember, it's all local shows. Did another one there called Fantastic Studios, Inc., which went from about 50 to 52. Then I did Beulah, and then I did Dagwood and Blondie in 1957 and 58 at Hal Roach Studios.
So Dagwood and Blondie in 57, 58, was that still Arthur Lake and Penny Singleton?
It was Arthur Lake, but it was Pam Britton as opposed to Penny Singleton.
She had gone off somewhere else by that point. Okay.
And Hal Perry played the next door neighbor, so it was another connection with Hal Perry because I did Gildersleeve with him, and then I also did Gildersleeve with the individual that replaced him. I'm drawing a blank. Well, Willard Waterman.
Willard Waterman.
And then I did the Honest Herald show, both on radio and television, with Hal Perry as a kind of his thumbing the nose at the studio who wouldn't pay him more money and replaced him with Willard Waterman. So, yeah.
Yeah. And Frank Nelson, any thoughts on Frank Nelson?
No real thoughts. The only one I have, the 2 things I have thoughts on with the Jack Benny show, and that is that the band director, I'm crazy, I don't know why I'm forgetting his name. He was a drummer, Sammy Weiss. He would let me play with the drums because he probably knew that as a kid I was going to play with the drums when they were gone, whether he gave me his permission or not. So he just gave me permission to play with the drums. And Frank Nelson I thought was very funny. But the one that was funny for all of us because of the reaction that it had on Jack Benny was the character became Crazy Guggenheim, but that isn't what he was called. It was Frank Fontaine doing his routine where he had difficulty talking, had extremely funny laughs, and Jack Benny would just absolutely laugh hysterically while that was going on.
So even on the air, he didn't get out his laughter in the rehearsals.
Even on the air, he started to laugh when he walked out, and he took this very strange looking, kind of hunched over and to the side position, and Mr. Benny would start to laugh right then. He didn't even have to say anything.
Okay, and that was all in the
the
50s, because that character was not on the Benny Show earlier than that. Okay,
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And I don't think I did the Benny Show in the 40s. I think I did it probably from around 50 to 55.
Okay. I also noticed in this particular one, Phil Harris is gone and Bob Crosby is now the new band leader.
That was a surprise to me. Yeah, I noticed that too.
Did you do the show when Phil Harris was there?
Yes.
Okay, so
and,
that would have been earlier.
He would grab me by the hand and we'd go do his show.
That's right. Yeah, you mentioned that earlier. What was your character on the Phil Harris Alice Faye show?
Nothing in particular, just whatever, where they had to fill in with the kids, because remember he had 2 daughters.
Yes.
And the daughters were played by 2 actresses mostly, and I don't remember what their names were.
Yeah, I don't either. I guess somebody can look that up. It's documented somewhere.
Everything is.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on Mr. Benny before we wrap this up?
I think it's a treat to your audience that you still have access to all of that material, because if there is such a thing as one of a kind, he was that one.
Well, great. Yeah, no, in fact, we delayed recording this podcast for a week because I had having a delivery of 40,000 pounds of radio recordings. So, yes, we have access to a lot. There's a lot missing, but there's also a lot that's out there, and that's my job, is to round it all up and make the best use of it we can and present it to a new audience that hasn't heard any of these things.
And hopefully they listen and pay attention of how you actually can be funny just using the English language in everyday situations. And it doesn't have to be sexist. It doesn't have to be dirty language. It's just fun stuff.
Yeah, well, we've kind of lost our way with that, as you're pointing out. Yeah, the modern television and modern films are a long ways away from that. But that's part of the fun here, is we get to go back and listen and see what it was like then. And I certainly agree with you that it was far, far better and far, far more entertaining than what we have now.
Well, and I know you probably have pictures of a lot of the old audiences. And the men were dressed in suits and ties, and the women were dressed with high heels and nice go-to-dinner type dresses, as opposed to people coming in torn shorts and T-shirts today.
Yeah, it's they were going to church, even though it wasn't church. That's how they were dressed. Yes, but then people don't go dressed that way to church anymore either. So we've lost it all the way around.
True. It's also true.
Wow. Well, it was a different time, different era, and all the rest of it, but it is fun to go back and see what it was like. This particular show we heard today should be a real treat for people, because it's totally a behind-the-scenes thing. You got to hear all kinds of directions from Benny on what to do and how to say the lines, and you heard some comments from the director and all the rest of it. So it's quite an interesting look at vintage radio. Usually when you hear vintage radio now, you just hear the program. You don't hear this kind of a thing. So it's an extra special one for the audience today.
Yeah, I would agree. Except what you're losing because of the rehearsal is the audience responses, because there's no audience there. But it is a good look at behind what goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, well, and you were a part of it, and that's great. And I thank you very much for being willing to come on here and reminisce about those days and tell us what it was like, because I wasn't there. I was not there. I didn't get born until 1958, so I missed all that.
So wait. So we're going to rub age into this. Is that what we're going to do?
Well, we could. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying I wasn't there, but I love hearing about it, because it sheds a whole new light on what it was like to do those programs. So I thank you very much for that.
It was an honor to do them. not an honor that I necessarily recognized at the time, but an honor that I recognize now that you're correct, I was, quote, a part of it, and am so pleased that somebody like you has decided to share with the audience your knowledge and your resources. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome, and I'm doing what I can to preserve all these old shows because a lot of them got thrown in the trash can after they were done. They didn't think to keep them, but there are a number of things that have been kept, and so we try to go through what we have and find the very best of it and present it to the audience here.
That's great. Great you're doing that.
Well, thank you very much. Do you want me to call you Stuffy or Simon?
If you call me Stuffy, unless I owe you money, then you call me Simon.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Stuffy Singer, for appearing on the Good Old Days of Radio podcast. And it was great to hear all your stories, and it's just been a fun afternoon for me to do this. So thank you very much, and maybe we'll talk to you again about Phil Harris or something else down the line. We'll see.
Thank you, John.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, that was Mr. Stuffy Singer from the Good Old Days of Radio, and you got to hear the Jack Benny rehearsal from February 22nd, 1953. This is John Tefteller in the Good Old Days of Radio show, and we will be back with more next time.